Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much to be here for this session where we'll talk about CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment on Cloud Build, the solution proposed by Google Cloud. I'm Guillaume Blaquier. I'm a Google developer expert on Google Cloud, and that's why I will talk about Google Cloud. I'm also a data architect at Carrefour, a large French retailer. Before talking about the detail and how to implement CI/CD on Google Cloud with Cloud Build, just a reminder of why it's important to use a CI/CD. In fact, when you perform developments, you have a step where you prepare your code. You have to compile, to test it, to package it. So the package is the second one. You have to build. You build your container, you build your artifacts, you build your packages, you build what you want in your code. And the last step to deploy is to deploy your packages, your container on services or your infrastructure. You can also build images for your VMs, stuff like that. And the principle of the CI/CD is to automate and to make the thing repeatable indefinitely. In fact, when you have an update on your code, you want to again prepare your code, build your packages and container, and then to deploy them. You have to do that in loop to accelerate, to secure the process. The principle here is to have something named idempotent. That means you can repeat the action, but the context, the infrastructure, the repetition is always the same. You perform the deployment on the same branch in your code. You perform the deployment on the same environment and same infrastructure. That means you have the same version of Terraform, the same version of Java, the same version of PHP, of what you want to perform your test, your packaging, and your deployment. The idempotency is very important to make the thing repeatable and to be confident in the automation that you apply. To do that, you have several systems, some legacy, very known, like Jenkins. You have something new with a cloud provider, with Cloud Build on Google Cloud. You have also Azure DevOps on Azure. You have GitLab CI or GitHub Actions, very related to your Git repository that allow you to perform actions, to perform builds on top of your code when the code is pushed to your Git repository. So now I would like to talk about Cloud Build. As I said, I'm Google developer expert on Google Cloud, and I know very well this platform. But before going deeper, I would like to talk about the features of Cloud Build. But why Cloud Build instead of other solution? Because I found in 2019, I didn't find something more recent. In fact, the Forrester Wave about the cloud native continuous integration tools, and Google is in the leader, and it's far from the other leaders. That's why I think it's a good tool to perform CI/CD in the cloud. What the key feature of Cloud Build? You have many features, but for me, the most interesting things is the serverless. What means serverless? That means you have nothing to manage. You have only to use Cloud Build. You have nothing to install, nothing to update, nothing to patch, nothing to backup. All this stuff are managed by Google Cloud for you, and you are simply a user of the platform. And because you don't have to perform all this managing things and stuff to do, it's secure by design because Google is also in charge of the patching in case of security issue, but also the firewall access, the identity access, all the IAM role to allow someone or something to access to your platform or not. Because it's serverless, it scales also automatically with your process. You can run 1 to 10 build in parallel, you can also run nothing. If you run nothing, you pay nothing. If you run a lot of builds, you will start to pay. I think you have a 10-hour free per days, but above this free quota, you start to pay the servers that you use to build your code. The next feature is the it could be a feature, it could be also a constraint. It's the stateless mode. That means you don't have disk attached to your build. That also means that you start a new build start from a fresh platform. It's idempotent. You start from the beginning. You have nothing in the disk to load as backup. The problem of that you don't have also cache. If you have you use frequently the same container image, you always need to download them from the internet, and you can't cache them on Cloud Build. Not directly in Cloud Build. You have some tips, but it's not directly in Cloud Build. But the advantage of the platform is because it's based on container, and I will present you that just after in detail in the architecture of Cloud Build. It's easily extensible and customizable because you can extend your container. You can also build your own container to load in each steps of your build. And because it's your own container, you can put what you want in your containers. And the last thing is Git oriented and GitOps oriented. And when your code is updated, because you have a new push, because you have a pull request, because you have a new tag, you can trigger a Cloud Build pipeline to perform actions. I don't know, maybe only checks, maybe to package, maybe to deploy. I don't know the actions that you want to perform according to the branch, according to the environments, according of many things. But you can trigger something and execute automatically some actions. Now we can go deeper in the Cloud Build architecture and understand what's happened. First one, it's the global architecture. It's not exceptional. In fact, you have your source code in one side. When something happens on your source code, you have a trigger, an event, and this event will trigger a Cloud Build pipeline. What's a pipeline? It's a sequence of steps that you do one by one in sequence. You do the first, the second, the third, and the fourth, etc., etc. And if one step fail, for example, you have a test and the test fail, the pipeline stop because in case of failure, you won't go to production. You don't want to continue on a failure. One of the key things is hosted by Google Cloud. As I said, it's serverless. It's hosted, fully hosted by Google Cloud. You can build your container image, your artifacts, and to push them somewhere. On Google Cloud, you have artifact registry to store all your artifacts. I mean your containers, but also your jar, your Java package, your Node package with npm, your Python package, and very recently your apt and yum packages also. So you can push all these artifacts on artifact registry, and of course, as I said, you can triggers builds when your source code change. If you go deeper in the architecture, because it's very important to understand the architecture to understand what will be your blocker and your issues in the future, and the tips that you can provide you to go over those issues. First of all, you have the build process. You have your source code, your source code in entry that is copy. In fact, it's clone from your Git repository. It is cloned in the /workspace directory in your pipeline. And in output, you can push your artifacts and container and so on. Then you have the step one. What's a step? In fact, a step is a container. You will load a container, maybe a container with Python in it or Java. So you load your container image. In fact, you define your image and you run your container. the image starts and it runs in memory. As I said, it's stateless, so nothing is stored on a physical disk. It's only it's run in memory. So you have in-memory file system, you have in-memory variables, and all is running in memory. Only one thing is mounted on your container. It's the slash workspace directory with your source code get from your Git repository. In fact, it's like you mount a volume when you perform a Docker run. For example, you mount a volume, and the volume is slash workspace. And that's all. When you perform your action, maybe in Java, you will build a jar, and you want to go to the step 2 to deploy your jar or to push your jar to artifact registry. You do the same thing. You load another container, maybe a gcloud container to perform a gcloud command to push your artifact to artifact registry. And again, the container run in memory with in-memory file system, and only the slash workspace is loaded, is mounted on the container. And you repeat all this step one by one. One thing very important to understand here is you load something in memory in step 1, then you delete this memory space, you only keep the slash workspace, and you load something else in memory for the step 2. That means you swap all your memory between each steps. And you have consequences on that, and we'll see that just after. Just to provide you a quick overview of what's a step and how do you define a step. For example, here you have a step name. The name is the container name. You load the container name gcloud and the entry point of the container, because when you run a container, the entry point is run automatically when you start. It's gcloud as entry point, and you only provide arguments to gcloud, apps, and deploy, and you will deploy, for example, App Engine with this command. It's the command of gcloud app deploy at the end. That's a simple step. So now, as I said, this architecture will lead to some issues or misunderstanding, or maybe some some issues, some blocker for you. And that's why I would like to enlighten something to help you to go faster and quicker with Cloud Build if you want to build something on it. First, you don't want to use entry point, a default entry point on your container. You want to customize it with Bash. Why? Because you don't want to use the default entry point, as I said, and maybe you want to run more than one command. Because if you have one entry point, you use the gcloud entry point. If you want to run 2 gcloud commands, if you use the default entry point, you need to add 2 steps, one with gcloud, the second with gcloud, and each time we have one command run. For example, this one. But you can also change and override the entry point and use Bash as entry point to override the gcloud entry point by default and to use your own entry point. For example, like that, you have Bash as entry point, and then you provide your arguments that you want. For example, -c pipe, and you can stack your commands and execute several commands in the same step. Of course, the entry point must exist in your container. If you have a container with Python, you can run Python as entry point or something like that. So you need to have a valid entry point. And if this entry point doesn't exist, you can install it on your container. You can have a custom container, or on your container, you can perform also apt get install, for example, to get a package from the internet and to install a new binary on your container and then to use it. Keep in mind, it's in memory. That's why if you have 2 steps with gcloud, in the first one you install, I don't know, gq to parse JSON. In the next step with the same gcloud container, you won't have gq installed because it's another step. You have swapped the memory and lose all your things that you installed previously, and you start from a new container gcloud without any installation on it. Something very new, I think it's 1 or 2 weeks ago. An easier way to write the bash entry is use the script statements. And as you see, you can replace the entry points, the args, the dash c, and it's more concise and easier to read and faster to understand. So next step is the environment variable scope. Indeed, when you have several steps, you maybe want to define one environment variables in one step and to reuse it later in your pipeline. Maybe the environment, maybe some key data that you want to pass from one step to another one. This one, the problem with CloudBuild, you have nothing out of the box to do that, and it's a big problem. For me, the biggest problem on CloudBuild, it's not a problem, it's just boring to create a workaround for that. Also, you have a special way to use your own environment variables, because if you don't use the correct syntax, CloudBuild will interpret that as substitution variables. We'll see that just after. And it can lead to a misunderstanding of your script by CloudBuild. And for example, if you are doing that, maybe you want to define one variables in one step and to reuse it in another step, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you create a var, your variables, you create that in memory, and because from one step to another one, you swap the memory and you start from a fresh memory, a fresh container. You have nothing in memory. The var doesn't exist, and here the echo is empty. You have nothing to print because the $var doesn't exist in your second step. To fix that, you have to know and to remember that only /workspace persists between the steps. That means you can store the variables in /workspace and read from /workspace in another step. That's the boring part to do that. And you also have to use the double dollar to tell to CloudBuild to use the environment variables and not to use a substitution variables. And at the end, you have this kind of things to do. In fact, you have to write your variables in a file in /workspace directory. And then in the next step, you have the /workspace and your file again. You have to read your file, and then you have something in memory. And to invoke your variables, you have here to use the $var to invoke correctly it and not to use the substitution variables. So substitution variables, what is it? In fact, it's like environment variables, but global to your whole pipeline. As context, you want something available for all your steps, and you can also override or set your substitution variables externally. I mean, when you invoke your pipeline, you can set these variables, and it's set in it. You can define it with default value, no problem. If you don't set it externally, the default value is taken. If not, if you don't set default value and you don't define it externally, you will have an error because CloudBuild don't know how to what to do with it, because it's useless, or he don't know. You don't have values for your substitution variables. He don't know what to do, so he do nothing and exit with error. The solution for that is so to use substitution variables and a constraint is to start all your substitution variables with underscore. Like that. In fact, you can have my sub here. You can define here a default value for my sub. For sub, you have here a default value. But here, my sub, it's you don't have a default value, and you have to provide this value, this substitution variables, when you invoke your pipeline, else you will exit in error. Something to also keep in mind that you can't update the value of substitution variables during the runtime. That means the step one, you want to change the value, you can't do it. When you define a substitution variables, it's static for the whole pipeline. It's perfect, for example, for environments. You can define your environment as substitution variables, and for all the pipeline, you know you are in dev, acceptance, or production environment, and maybe to do different steps according to your environment. The substitution variables are great to provide some data, but it's not perfect. It's not perfect, for example, for the secrets, because if the secret, you define the secret in substitution variables, if you have a default value for a secret, it's not a secret because it's in plain text in your pipeline definition. So it's not very efficient, and it's not very secure at the end. You can also define that externally, but that means that the process that invoke your pipeline must know the secret and invoke cloud build with a secret in plain text also. So substitution variables are not the solution for the secrets. And you have to keep the secret indeed. And you don't want to use substitution variables because, as I said, here, if you have here your secret is not very secret because it's in plain text here. So the solution is to use the Secret Manager integration. Secret Manager is a product on Google Cloud designed to store your secrets, as the name is very good for that. And you can load your secrets directly from the pipeline. Of course, your pipeline must have the permission to access your secrets, but if you have, you can load dynamically the secrets without any external or plain text definition in your pipeline. So, for example, here you have here your secrets defined as environment variables. Here, name secret arm. And how do you load the secret arm from Secret Manager? You have here the available secrets to define in your pipeline. It's a global definition. And you have here the name of your secrets. So you have the full name. You have to define the project. That also means you can go to another project to get the secrets. You can have share secrets. It's possible maybe to access a database or to access to something. And you name here your secrets at the end. Something very interesting is that to use the secret in this only step here, you have to define the secret env that you load in the step. That means maybe in step 2, you don't want to use the secret. If you don't define the secret env, you don't have the secret loaded during the step. That allow you to only load the secrets on the step that required it, but no more, and to keep the secrets, the most secrets that you can in your pipeline. Just be careful, you can access your secrets only in script mode, not in argument mode, like I presented it on the left, but only in script mode. So here with a script, and you have a dollar to access to your secrets. It's a constraint also to use a script, but keep that in mind. If you use it as arguments, it won't work. I talked about the permission of the pipeline to access to the secrets. While we are doing that, we are using the identity. Each product on Google Cloud has its own identity to be authenticated with Cloud IAM, Identity Access Manager, and to check if the platform, the service, has the permission to access to another service. It's very powerful, and it also works with Cloud Build. By default, Cloud Build use the default service account. Just have the name just after. But you want to enforce the least privilege. Why you want to do that? Because if you have two pipelines, maybe one for development, one for production, and the two must have access to the secrets. One secret for the production, for accessing to the database in production, and the second one to accessing to the database in development. If you use the same service account, you have to grant the service account to access to the production secrets and to access to the development secrets. And so you don't have a least privilege because the same service account has access to dev and to prod secrets. Is not very secure at the end. You also don't want, and I recommend you to never use the service account's key file. It's very dangerous because it's a key file. It's a file with a secret in it. Because you have a secret in it, you have to keep the file secret, and it's difficult, or you have to store it in a secret manager. But at the end, you don't have to do that because when you start your Cloud Build, by default, you use the default service account with this pattern, your project number at cloudbuild.gserviceaccount.com. To have something more secure and to have your own service account, your custom service account to use for production and for development pipeline, you can use customer managed service account and to grant only the permission on each service account. That means for the service account for production, you will only grant the permission to access to the secrets for production, and same thing for the dev service account, will grant it only the permission to access to the dev secrets for database. And you can load this service account in your pipeline. At the end, so also a global definition, you can set your service account and here to define the service account email that you want to use with your pipeline. And like that, you are secure by design. Before going to the latest step, I would like to present you a new concept on Cloud Build. New, I think it has been released last year, but it's important to understand the difference between the shared pool, the legacy Cloud Build, in fact, and the private pool, the new feature. The shared pool is the legacy infrastructure, and in fact, when you run a build, it run somewhere in the serverless world. You don't know where, you don't know how, but you know it's on VM managed by Google Cloud for you, and it's shared with other customers. Each customer has its own sandbox and run its pipeline its own sandbox, but the global project on Google Cloud side, because it's managed by Google Cloud, it's shared with all the builds and all the customers. The problem with that is when you want to access to something secure in your it's the next slide. I will just explain the shared pool. The shared pool is shared with all the customers, and all the customers are on the same infrastructure. The advantage of that is the pool is as well always hot. That means you have always one instance up because it's shared with many customers. Google keeps the VM up, and when you start a build, it starts instantly on a VM available in the cluster. When you talk about the private pool, it's slightly different. It's still run on the serverless world. It's not managed by you. It's run also in Google side. But this time, you can define on which region you want to run the pool and the VM. Why you can do that? Because when you define a private pool, the VPC, the environments where you run your VM are dedicated to you, to your project. That also mean because it's dedicated to your project, Google won't keep VMs up and running only for you because it's too expensive for Google, and Google stops the VM. When you want to run um, a pipeline, a job, Google will start a VM and then run the job on this VM. Problem of that, because your instance is not up and running, you have to start a new instance, a new VM. You have to wait 30 seconds, 60 seconds to start a VM on your private pool and then to run your pipeline. It could be very annoying and boring when you perform some tests because when you want to perform a test, it's not instant. You have to wait 30 seconds to start your pipeline, and when you have an error, you have also to fix and to wait and so on. It's not so perfect, but it's a feature. How to use it? In fact, you have to define a worker pool like that. You can allow or not the access to the public internet. You can define the peering, and I will talk about that just after, and also the type of machine and disk to use. Again, the disks are only to run the pipeline. It's not persistent. It's only at runtime space dedicated to your code and to your packages in your application. When you want to use it, when you run a pipeline with Cloud Build, you have an option to use a worker pool and to define your worker pool created just before. And why I'm talking about that? Because you want to perform some private connection between Cloud Build and your project. Why? There's at least 2 or 3 reasons for that. You want to access to something private, like a private Cloud SQL without a public IP, and so the Cloud SQL is only reachable from your VPC. Maybe you have also a private GKE or a private Cloud Composer, also only accessible from your VPC. And for that, you need to connect the Cloud Build VPC to your project VPC and to peer the two VPC. Maybe you also want to prevent internet access, maybe to not download something not managed by you, like apt or Yum packages. You want to prevent that, and you block the internet access of your build, and you want something built only in a managed environment, in Sandbox. And the solution for that is Private Pool. Why? Because you have a private VPC, you have a VPC dedicated to your project in the Google Cloud project and serverless world. You can perform a safe peer between this private pool and your VPC because it's dedicated to you. It's not shared as before by many customers. It's only dedicated to you. You can perform a safe peering between both. You can access to your private resources, of course, because you have a private access to your VPC. And you can control the internet access, as I said, to prevent some download and unwanted and uncontrolled downloads. That was the latest tips or solution with Cloud Build. If you have some question, I will be happy to answer you now in live. If you have no question now, no problem. I will be able to answer you later on Twitter, on Medium, on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Medium also if you want. So no problem. I will be happy to share with you my tips, my issues, because if I know those tips, it's because I had a lot of issues with Cloud Build. And so I'll be happy to share with you and talk with you. Thank you very much to be here, and I hope to see you soon.